missing someone. Love with all your heart. Missing someone. Love with heart.
What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. So this episode we are going to do a full transformation on this client. So she is wanting a very specific color placement for her creative color. At the very end we're going to be using some Danger Jones semi-permanent hair color to overlay on top of the lighten pieces that we're about to do. So to go with what she had asked for, she wants the front of her hairline to be quite solid, even though right now she has some like previous highlights and some old balayage. And then behind the chunky thick solid piece, she does want the rest to be blended like we normally do, just like heavy highlighted. So here is pretty much the placement. I've already pre-sectioned. You can see how much of the front we're going to be doing solid, and then the rest of the back we're just going to blend it how we normally do. Just blend it a little bit on the heavier side because she wants it to be pretty noticeable and full of color there. So I am starting at the nape of her neck, and I'm doing a detail foil hairline here at the nape. And I usually will do, for her, I'm going to be doing like a medium size weave. For the back, we are going to try and get this as light as possible because her roots are super long. So I am doing another weave right above that very first one to get her hairline nice and bright. See, this part right behind the ear where the hairline is at the nape here is technically part of the face frame or like money piece area. So I always like to detail this part because when she brings her hair forward, she is going to see that color that frames her face right around the hairline on this side here. And then for the products that I'm using, I am using the Blonde Me Schwarzkopf Lightener, and I like to mix a first bowl of just equal parts 6 volume and 20 volume, and then every bowl after that will just be straight 20 volume for the rest of the head. And I will be using the same lightener as well for the front when I retouch that to get a little bit solid. But after I detail the hairline, guys, I am going to be going in and pretty much just slicing the rest of the hair. So I do about 3 weaves just to detail the hairline here, and then I'm going to change it up and do some slices in the center of the head. And the slices in the center of the head, I am going to take it all the way up to the part where I'm going to take it solid, and we're going to be going all the way up to that part. When I'm doing my slices, I am trying to actively pick out the parts that have like the longest, darkest root so that her mids and ends feel a little bit more solid. So I'm going in, and I would say that my sectioning between the slices are about maybe 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch, depending on how dense the hair is or how much dark there is. So I am trying to pick through and see where the longest root is. So sometimes if the dimension or the longest part of the root is about 1/4 inch, I will take up 1/4 inch, or if I find that it is about 1/2 inch, I will go up a little bit more and do 1/2 inch. But just depending on where I can see most of that dark. And then on top of that, as I get a little bit closer towards the top, I am trying to keep my sectionings just a little bit closer together. So you can see here, I'm also picking out any previous blonde and just making sure that I'm fully saturating. Now in the past with this client, I used to weave her hair, but this is probably like one of the longest times she's ever gone in between her color appointments. So we definitely had to do something that was going to give her a lot more color this time. So as I'm slicing here, so the next time when she comes in for a retouch, I'll be able to pick out any pieces that I didn't slice this appointment and pick those up and lighten those. That way, as you can see, I am picking out her previous highlights and really only highlighting the dark that runs through the root all the way to the end. So what that's going to do is it's going to re-highlight the root and blend that part, but at the same time I am adding some more brightness and blonde on the mids and ends. And so overall, even though she waits pretty long in between her appointments, her mids and ends are able to stay nice and bright and solid, so that it kind of gives that effect where the top is a little bit darker and then it slightly gets a little bit lighter on the ends. Now, if this was a client who came in and she was really consistent with coming in and getting her roots done, like I would say she's a client who would come in religiously every like 10 to 12 weeks, and she felt a little too solid, sometimes I do go in and I will just like do the similar type of sectioning, but I will do weaves. But when I do the weaves in this type of sectioning, I don't like to do any weaves that are smaller or thinner than a small weave. I necessarily don't really like to baby light because in my opinion, whenever I baby light, it's really hard for me to pick out the baby light, like the dimension from the baby light, and then retouch it next time. So as you can see, as I'm picking out my old highlights, they are more on the medium size weave, and that makes it a whole lot easier to pick them out and re-highlight only what's necessary when doing weaves that are a little bit thicker than a baby light. And you know, especially on dark hair, if you are going to baby light, it's really hard to retouch your baby lights if you make them super fine or just like really tiny and woven. And when you do that and you try to like pick them out, it's never 100% you're able to like pick out all the dimension that you left out because it's so woven together. So that's one of the main reasons why I just in general don't really baby light, but there are so many ways and different techniques that you can utilize to give the baby light look. For example, like if this client came in and she wanted like a smaller weave pattern or just something that was super blended, what I would do instead of doing like an actual baby light where it's super woven like that is I would probably take thinner slices so that it looks and appears like a baby light, and then maybe just leave a little bit more dimension in between my highlights so that it really does look like a very thin, small little baby light, like a normal baby light would if you baby lighted it. So there's so many ways you can achieve the baby light look without actually doing a baby light weave, only because it is just easier to retouch a weave if it's like a slice or a medium-sized weave, in my opinion. So now that I'm pretty much on the top part of her head, my slices here are going to get a little bit closer together, and I want to make sure that I'm not bending the hair anywhere where I put some lightener. So I do make sure that I use longer foils to make sure that the lightener that I'm using is able to give an even lift and just has room to expand if necessary. With this client, after I'm done foiling her, I will put her under like medium heat. I don't put it under high, I just do medium because her root is long, and I find that when I do long foils like this, a few inches off the root, you do get that heat zone that helps process that root a little bit quicker. So I like to throw the ends of the foils into the dryer to kind of mimic the body heat so that it kind of catches up to the heat that is coming from the head. So once I've reached the top to the next solid section, I'm gonna just continue doing my slices up the head on the sides, and I'm gonna be doing the solid money piece last because I want that to be a little bit more detailed, and I'm just working in quadrants. So I did the back and I'm doing now the sides, and then I will finish off with the front. If this was a normal balayage, I normally would do like the whole mohawk and then I would do the money piece and then the side. But since we are doing something a little bit different today, I am just switching up the order just by preference, because I feel like it'll be a little bit easier for me to focus on the solid front once the back and sides are all done. So now that I'm doing the front solid part, I am just taking slices back to back, and when I'm doing the slices back to back, I want to make sure that my sections are very thin because we do want a really nice, clean, even lift. And so I am taking very thin sections and trying to detail as much as possible and only highlight what is dark. So leaving no negative space is going to create a very solid, chunky money piece, just like the way that she had showed me in her inspo pictures. And then later when we do our semi-permanent color, we are going to be sectioning out this front solid money piece and be doing one tone in the front and then another tone for the back. And again, for my lightener, I am just using the Blonde Me Schwarzkopf lightener, and I am just using 20 volume like I did for the rest of the head, only because I want everything to lift as even as possible and at the same pace level. So that is why I'm using the same type of lightener. And then before moving on to the front, I do like to do both of the sides first and then do the front top part last, just so that there's balance on the sides as well. And again, just making sure that I'm taking very thin slices here and detailing this part as careful and meticulous as possible, because this part is really crucial, especially because it's around her face. We do want a nice, clean, even lift so that the semi-permanent hair color does fade evenly. So this is what her hair looked like before we put on the semi. We pretty much dried her about 80%, and you can see that we did the solid front. We're going to be doing a light pink for that, and again, we're using the new Danger Jones semi-permanent hair color line to do this. And so the front chunky piece is going to be Cheap Date, which is their light pastel pink. And then the rest of the color behind that is going to be Diablo, which is their newest red tone. And I would say Diablo is more like a bright red. If you do want to deepen it, a good tip to deepen it into more of a burgundy tone is to add some Libertine into it. We did add a bit of Libertine just to make it a little bit deeper, but overall this red in the back is going to be majority Diablo. And then again in the front is just straight Cheap Date, which is their light pink. So one of the things I want to mention about Danger Jones is the viscosity of the hair color line is just a lot smoother. It's a little bit lighter and just a lot easier to work with, especially when you're blending colors together or just applying, and I really feel like you don't have to use too much of this color because of the way that it makes the hair feel and the way that it applies. And then the other thing that I really loved is the dye load in the product. I feel like it has so much pigment, and again, you really don't have to use as much as I used to with my other semi-permanent color lines. And then the other thing that I really loved is that it smells really great too. It has a really nice fragrance to it that does make the hair smell good even after you rinse out the color. And then just like with most semi-permanent hair color lines, this color does process for a maximum of 35 minutes, and then you are able to rinse with cold water and then condition if you'd like. You can see here I am applying the lighter color, and then my assistant Emily is helping me apply the reddish tone in the back. After we're done applying this together, as we tag team it through, I do go back in and check the hair, and the way that I do that is I will separate the hair with my fingers and then just add more product where it's necessary. And it's really easy to miss spots when working with semi-permanent hair colors because you're often putting it on dry hair, and just the texture of it is a lot different from doing like a normal toner. So you always want to cross-check and reapply in areas that need a little bit more pigment to make sure that you're fully saturating the hair. Alrighty guys, so here is the finished look. We were so obsessed with the way that this turned out. I feel like these warm tones really complement and look so good on her skin tone, and I love that we went with the pop of pastel pink in the front. We definitely have done like other red tones in her hair before, but adding that pink in the front gave it that extra fun sparkle to it, and I feel like it just gave a beautiful face frame and really suits her haircut and the way that her bangs are framing her face. Alrighty guys, that is it for this week's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in, and as always, I will talk to you guys next week.